So I'm Hector, building Harley. We're essentially trying to enable you to chat with your enterprise data. We think this is like a huge problem and hopefully the future of how people are going to interact with their data sets. We've just completed a project with the third largest retailer in the UK, and today hopefully going to show you a quick demo of kind of some of the tech that we're building. Can you hear me okay?
Name drop them.
So on Monday we're doing like a big PR announcement, so, or you could just go to our website and see, but you know, it's fun. So okay, I want to set some context. Imagine that you are a top executive at a big fashion retailer. You're sat in a board meeting and it's mid-July, you've got sweat dripping down your forehead, and your CFO turns to you and says, like, what are the sales here? Why are they going bad here? What's happening? Come on, tell me the answers. And you've got these static dashboards and static reports, and they're just not quite cutting it because of the dynamic nature of these meetings, where you have like assumptions that you need to test live. And through talking with customers, we find that once these exec teams have these questions, it can take almost a week for analysts to return the answers. And so what we're trying to build is, how do you get those answers live during those meetings? So let's jump into a quick demo. I've got a few kind of missions that we want to go through, but first let's just talk through the data. Is that text big enough? Can you guys see that text there? Awesome. So yesterday I uploaded some synthetic data where we've got 3 tables. So it's basically products data, so you've got your product code, your area, all of that kind of stuff. You've got your stores data, so store code, location, a few attributes of those stores. And then this is the big table that is the transactions. So this is every purchase of a product by a customer, by a store, that they have. But it's all synthetic data. Let's start off by saying plot sales over time. Just kind of really simply get a high level view. And let's wait for that to come through. Cool. So we can see that there's quite a lot of sales happen. But maybe I kind of want to drill down a little bit more, and I might want to find out what are kind of some of the worst performing areas that we have. So let's split that by store type. And at the moment, it's like a chat interface that people can use live during meetings. Obviously, hopefully everyone can kind of see where this kind of tech and the engine behind this can go. Cool, okay, so we see that Supercenter's probably not doing too well compared to the other stores. So let's dig a little bit further into that, and let's look for what are the worst performing categories in Supercenters. Cool, so I might just pause here and just talk a little bit about what's actually happening behind the scenes. So the really simple concept is you enter a question in plain English, we get a language model to write some code, and then we execute that code on the database. I imagine most people here have kind of played around with data analysis, especially with language models. How you get really good performance is you let them plan and you let them take their time. And that can take like 30 to 40 seconds. So a lot of the engineering we're doing, especially if you want to use like the big, powerful models that can take in a huge amount of context that is really needed to answer like boardroom level discussions, is you have to write really efficient code, and you have to write that code really quickly and use very few tokens if you can. Okay, so we see sleepwear is not doing too well. There's some really, really low sales. What I'm going to do next is say, okay, let's drill even further into these categories, and let's have a look at some of the departments. So I'm going to say maybe Pareto the departments within sleepwear, and I'm going to say maybe sales for the past 4 weeks, just so we get something a little bit more recent. Awesome. So we can then see, if you can't see it back, basically it's like sleep suits are performing really bad, but it's, again, synthetic data doesn't look quite right, but hopefully the point was clear. And then, okay, what actions can we actually drive across this? So if you're a retail executive, you might want to send a message to some of the stores that aren't performing so well. So let's look at the show me the top 5 and worst 5 performing stores for sleep suit sales for the last, say 8 weeks. Cool, and you might notice here that it's saying, it did say computing without accelerator mode. So the way that we can get really high accuracy and also keep it fast enough to actually work live is by training these, by basically training our engine offline. So you can imagine like a big orchestration of LLMs that get to play around with the data set. And this works really well, especially for the production version where you have 10, 15, 20 different tables, all like tens or hundreds of millions of rows long, with an absolute obscene number of columns. How these language models can actually understand it. So we let the language models play with the data, and then all of the kind of useful insights that come out of that play session, we then have spent a lot of time working out how do you inject that back into the conversations of real time. And then, cool, so you've seen the stores, maybe there's some emails that you fire off to the store managers in these different locations. With some details, you say, look, these are really similar stores, but you're performing really badly, or those are kind of some of the actions that can be driven. Let's do a couple more like just interesting visualizations that hopefully kind of show some of the capabilities. So let's visualize the full trading hierarchy for categories, and let's color this by revenue, which hopefully does like quite a nice plot. Awesome. So what we can see from this, like what actual insight can you drive from this? What value can you drive? So we can see that like women's shoes is clearly one of the biggest revenue areas. So we can maybe visualize that on a map, which might be useful to see if there's any kind of geographic distributions or changes or where is it performing best. So let's say like plot stores on a map. Let's color this by shoes sales for the past, like 100 days. And one of the really interesting things, if anyone's used Python plotly before, you might recognize some of these plots coming up. And it's because we're actually writing Python code in the background. We're not writing SQL code. So what you see is there are quite a few applications that are really amazing that are writing SQL code, and then you're taking that data and putting it into a static visualization layer. The Python code that's written is fully end-to-end, so it does the querying of the data, does the analysis and the calculations, and then builds the plots as well. And what we found is that gives just an incredible amount of flexibility to what users can ask. The best example is one of the execs that we were working with came in with a big smile on their face after one meeting saying, I just did an animated bar chart. I didn't know we could do it, and we didn't know that you could do an animated bar chart, right? So it's giving that flexibility and that power to the actual user, and not constraining them with the kind of static visualization. Like as I said, we are pretty confident, and for our conversations with customers, that like this is the future of how humans get to interact with their data. And then just a bit on like our mission. So we are the big focus now is getting more users. So getting more users using the platform with their own data. And then obviously pushing the intelligence as well. So one of the real benefits of the flexibility is that kind of what we're working on in the background that hopefully will come out soon is moving from the kind of descriptive analytics over to the diagnostic stuff. And we think that, especially from our conversation with customers, like that's where it's really going to drive a lot of value. So yeah, that's Holly. Thanks so much for listening.